for some reason our background is not showing. That is a big concern nowadays. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Third and 10 podcast. This episode is time for basically it's Coach's Corner that we do every single week. And of course, I'm not doing this alone because otherwise it wouldn't be Coach's Corner. So joining us now is the man himself. He's here every single week talk about the Buffaloes, the almost cussed right there. Sorry, but Dallas Cowboys and everything in between. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Coach Anton Wilson. Coach, happy Wednesday. How you doing?
I'm great, man. These days are flying by.
I know.
It's cool. Every Sunday, I go through my review of what went on in the college football world. Then I do my same thing on Monday. Love the routine. Love the routine that we got going on here. Keeps me accountable. And watching these games is a true escape from what's going on in my day-to-day. So it's great to still have football in my life, to talk about it. Love the energy that you're bringing on this podcast. So we are back at it again. And what I'm most excited about is that we're at the point in the NFL season, more so the NFL than college, I'll say, to where like we now know who's who. Teams have an identity. We can begin to see who the top teams are in the league, even teams who might be fooling us a little bit with a good record and good metrics, but they haven't played anybody and they're really flawed. So we can begin to uncover that. And so I think that creates much better dialogue. And of course, Colorado 1 game away from being bowl eligible. So a lot of things to discuss here, man. And I'm ready to get rolling.
Yeah, we might as well get started with the Buffs, Coach, shall we? We talked last week about the matchup against the Wildcats. To me, I kind of thought the Wildcats would give them a challenge. Yeah, not even close. The Buffs, despite 2 interceptions from Shadur Sanders, they didn't need him to be Superman. Like, this Buffalo's team got the job done against a Wildcat team that contained guys like Fafita and Tetsuo McMillan, who is going to be a first-round pick in this upcoming draft when he does declare. This team offensively and defensively got the job done. They put up 28 points in the first half alone. They kind of chilled the rest of the way with just 6 in the second half. The Buffs did, but overall, Coach, an outstanding performance from offense, defense, and special teams. They just got the job done. Simple as that. That's how I saw it. So first, I want to get your thoughts on this game, Coach. What impressed you the most? Wester had a heck of a game, so I'm sure you're happy with that. And Travis Hunter was shut down for the second half. That was a big note too that I got from this game as well. But they didn't need him because they played so damn well. So, your thoughts on this win, Coach? A big one, a big one for this team. Because like you mentioned at the beginning, 1 win away from bowl eligibility.
Colorado was dominant on all 3 phases of the game. 34-7 impressive victory, probably the most impressive victory under Coach Prime yet, just off the fact that the game was predicted to be a lot closer. Arizona does have some big players and they have had some success in the past. Definitely a program that's been better throughout the course of the last decade. Noah Fafita has been a little volatile, to say the least. He's throwing a lot of picks. T-Mac, as I like to call him, Tetsuo McMillan, phenomenal player. However, they weren't really able to get him going. One of the key parts of the game for Colorado was winning the turnover battle. 2 forced fumbles and an interception. Second week in a row, they were able to come up with some big interceptions that really changed the course of the game. They ran the ball very well, $155 on the ground using a host of backs. Dragon Miller really getting rolling. I had talked about him last week and using him as a receiving threat. I saw him flanked out wide a little bit. They came with the shotgun split back set for the little speed option shovel pass for the first score early in the game. And I saw a little bit more tight end stuff. I saw a new guy in there. They have Smalls. I saw another guy, H-back type. So that was interesting to see. And now for me, LeJontay Wester is really bona fide number 1. And I say that off the fact that Travis Hunter is a 2-way player and his snaps have been cut down the last couple of weeks. And one thing that's been consistent is LeJontay Wester has been making plays, especially on third downs. He's sure-handed, explosive after the catch, undersized, but really just does everything really well. It has a nice target to catch ratio as well. You can see that Shador really trusts him. And so he's emerged as really the go-to option. And then I love Will Shepherd, man. I really do. I think he is a prototypical Z receiver, but he's had some crucial drops and some things that I just haven't liked, whether it's not winning off the line of scrimmage. There was a little bit of some conflict between him and Shador, and him complaining about his ankle and if he was ready or not. Love how Shador challenged him. But Shepard makes really impressive catches, and he's really good when he's contested as well. So good to see different guys in the mix. Again, Colorado's really deep at receiver. So even with Horn in and out of the lineup and Hunter out, Omarion Miller being out, they're still not really missing a beat. I think it's interesting, though. What I found interesting is that Colorado was flat in the second half. And I think that's off the sheer fact that they're usually playing from behind, or they're in close games or starting off slow, and they're just built to pass. So when they got to run and control clock a little bit more, they're just out of pocket, no pun intended. It's just out of character for them. They want to throw the ball around. So I thought that was interesting, but the defense didn't let up one bit. They're applying pressure, and I think that we're starting to see the identity of that defense really just being like a blue-collar defense. The linebacker's name, something Green, transfer from Charlotte, also started his career off of Michigan. We had talked about him off air, really emerging as their tackling machine, which you love to see. I think Shiloh played a much better game this week as well. So all things considered, man, again, it's always just long-winded when I initially just talk about the things that Colorado's doing well. But I would say now they look like a legitimate football team, and it's going to be exciting if they could get this game this week, which isn't going to be an easy one against Cincinnati, to become bowl eligible, because then the conversation really begins to heat up of, are they a playoff threat? Can they win the Big 12? I don't think so, but it is good conversation. That really was the keys last week, really dominating on all three phases. There were 9 of 18 on third down, keeping drives alive. Shador was stellar. They balanced the run. And Arizona really has no second option on offense. They weren't able to get the run game going, and Colorado had their way with the defense. So on that day, Colorado was just clearly the better football team. And I think that this Arizona team is mediocre at best. And so the show goes on, man. But what were your thoughts? I obviously covered a lot on how Colorado is progressing. But before we talk about Cincinnati, what are your thoughts on their evolution and how you perceive them to be a legitimate football team?
Yeah, I think for me, first off, what impressed me the most just from this game as well was the run game. It was better than last week, the week before, right? They put up 155 this week with 2 touchdowns from one of them from Augusta, but the other one from Shadur Sanders. Look, this team, it's simple as if they can just get the run game going, they're gonna be fine. Like, this offense is explosive enough with the passing game. They just need to incorporate the run game and have that be effective, so that way teams don't just focus on one dimension. Because the week before, the run game was bad, and it was just like, okay, well, as long as we just focus on the pass, we're gonna be fine because the run game isn't gonna be a threat. This week we saw Agastave, we saw Offrendal. Both of those guys step up. They didn't rush for a crazy amount of yards, but they did get, and it was a okay performance. Like, it was good enough.
Draylon Miller as well.
Yes, that is, Draylon Miller. He's one guy to 3 catches for 18 yards. Yeah, 18 yards and a score as well from him. But you mentioned Wester, you mentioned Shepard. Those are 2 guys that from the beginning of the season, I think we discussed that as well, right, Coach? How those 2 guys were going to, their transfers, right? And they're really good receivers, and it would help this. It was going to help this offense compared to last year when the only receiving threat was pretty much Travis Hunter. Now that Travis is kind of, he's battled injuries recently. He's not playing as many snaps like he used to. Those 2 guys have stepped up to the challenge and kind of live up to our expectations of, okay, kind of being that number 1, number 2 target for Shadur and not having to rely on Travis too much. And we'll dive in, of course, to Cincinnati in a bit, because there was an update on Travis Hunter and in terms of injury update, since, as we know, he did sit in the second half. But defensively, that's obviously a key thing to note. You mentioned Hill Green had 8 tackles on the night, had 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss. Samuel Okunola had 2 sacks as well for the Buffaloes. Overall, this defense sacked Fafita 7 times, and they that's really impressive, honestly. They just limited that Arizona offense, who just could not get anything going whatsoever after that first quarter touchdown. So that was impressive as well. And they had a couple field goals, I believe. Yeah, Alejandro Mata, who won Big 12 Player of the Week.
He's a
Yeah,
great kicker.
yeah, and he does kick kind of low, but hey, does it matter, coach? If it goes in, it goes in, right?
Right, man.
Damn right. I think
Punky.
he won Player of the Week a couple of weeks ago, I believe. So shout out to him. But he's been solid as well. Just overall, this team on all 3 levels, there's nothing much to complain about whatsoever. I mean, they just shut down Arizona pretty much after that first quarter. So, but hey, this was a great game, right? But hey, we do need to see this consistently, and the focal point that I'll always focus on for this team is the run game. If they can just keep running the football effectively, they don't have an RB1 that's a dangerous threat in that backfield. So if maybe it's Dallas Hayden, maybe it's Augustave, maybe it's Offendahl, one of those guys, if they can step up, then I think this Colorado offense will be even more explosive. You add in the fact that Travis Hunter is slowly getting back to 100%. This team is something to fear. I mean, they've always been a team to watch out for all year long, right? They've been on national television for pretty much the whole season. The game upcoming against Cincinnati that we're going to talk about, that was moved to national television as well.
Oh, yeah.
So they're always a center of attention, and I love it. I do love it to see. So do you have any other points for the Colorado Arizona game, coach, or do you want to move forward to Cincinnati? Because I think that's a big topic to discuss.
Forward to Cincinnati, man. Hey, we're on to Cincinnati.
We're on to Cincinnati, right?
Okay, so obviously this is the matchup this upcoming week at 10:15 Eastern Standard Time. The Buffaloes take on Cincinnati. I believe this one's out in Boulder.
Yes.
It's going to be a rocking house. Of course, all the celebrities are going to be out there. And Cincinnati's a good football team, man. They're 5-2. I watched them play Arizona State last week where they won 24-14. They are led by Coach Scott Satterfield. And I had to do a little deep dive into this guy.
Yeah.
He plays college football at Appalachian State. In his career, he is 84-59. He also coached at Louisville. He coached at Appalachian State as well. First, then coached over at Louisville, was 25-24. I don't know if Louisville is actually, I think Louisville, is a better job than Cincinnati. But Luke Fickell was really successful at Cincinnati, and Cincinnati's had some highs throughout the last 2 decades or so. They have been competitive. The Kelsey brothers obviously went there. Luke Fickell went on to Wisconsin, so this guy, insert him. He was 3-9 last season, but in the newly formed Big 12, he has Cincinnati fairly competitive. He's an offensive mind for sure. Offensive coaches like to score points, and his quarterback, Brendan Sorsby, is a dual threat, really good with ball distribution. They have a nice mix of using tight ends and bigger personnel, spreading it out, using wings, and they have 2 explosive backs. Corey Kiner has been phenomenal throughout the year, averaging 5.6 yards a carry. Then their other back prior, number 6, had a game-breaking Reggie Bush-esque run last week against Arizona State. So he is a dynamic playmaker as well. Not like an elite offense, but pretty good at controlling the ball, efficient passing. And I think that they're really defined by that offense. They stopped the run pretty well, but they've had some pretty high-scoring games. They lost in the opener to Pitt. Pitt obviously doing really well this year. And they also lost to Texas Tech. Texas Tech has been trending up, although they did take a bad loss to Baylor, but they have been in the running for potentially a Big 12 championship. But I say all that to say that Cincinnati is a real football team. I don't think that they're amazing. This isn't like a victory that would be like, oh, good job, pat on the back, Colorado. We got to stop doing that now because we know they're a good team. This is a game that Colorado should win, but they're going to have to play good on all 3 phases. So to just give you a little bit more insight now, Cincinnati does average 174 yards on the ground, which is probably their strong point, although they can't throw fairly well. Quarterback has a 68% completion percentage. This is really going to come down to the fact that their passing defense is terrible. Okay, so Colorado is going to be able to have their way throwing the ball. That being key number one. Now, can Cincinnati, who can score fairly quickly, can they have long, sustainable drives to control the game and keep their defense off the field? That's really what it's going to come down to, is which offense is more efficient and which offense is more effective on third downs. Both defenses are good but have weak points. So I think the longer they're on the field, time of possession is really the key metric. Also, Colorado has the opportunity to potentially, if they can just get Cincinnati in second and long and third and longs, and they can start blitzing that guy. I like Colorado in their matchups in the secondary versus Cincinnati's perimeter players. So the talent gap really comes from Colorado on the perimeter with more speed. If Cincinnati can keep this game in between the trenches, they're more of like a pro style spread. So somewhat of contrasting styles, but Colorado is just a more well-rounded team with just more talent. And that's why I just don't think that Cincinnati can keep up. But hats off to the fact that they are trending up. And I will say this, if Colorado were to lose, and if they were to lose close, somewhat of a bad look, that would mean that they have regressed. And if they were to get blown out, then really that kills all of the conversation. If they lose by 10 plus points, then like we got to really just like calm it down, like entirely. Like that's where the line's in the sand. Like they really can't lose this game. So that's how I analyze it. But it's not going to be an easy task for them.
Not at all. Not at all. In terms of points per game, Cincinnati ranks 57th in the FBS with 30 points per game. They allowed 19.3 points per game as well, which is 27th best in the entire nation. The Buffaloes allowed 21.9 points as well. So I think for me, defensively, right, for Colorado, in the losses that they've suffered, let's start with the one against Nebraska, right? They struggled a lot in that first half against Nebraska defensively, but they came out in the second half, did not allow any points whatsoever. So that just shows, hey, they can make adjustments. Against Kansas State when they lost, look, DK Giddens ran all over them. But other than that, he was the only threat. They limited everyone else.
For sure.
What I'm trying to say is like this defense is very underrated. Like they may not have like a defensive roster full of like star-studded players, like shutdown guys, but they know how to adjust. They know how to adjust.
They're really good situational. They have good corners and they're good at sending the house and they can play man coverage. And so once they're up on teams and they can put you in like a 3rd and 5 plus, and they can send the house, like that's where the speed comes. That's their strength, man. Colorado's a great pass defense. And so that is where you really see them come out. But when teams get into a ball control and Colorado's offense is stagnant and the defense is on the field for a long period of time, you can have their way with that. That's the only weak point, is when they're on the field a lot. They're not really built for the long haul. They're good in spurts, and so they can't just like you can wear them out. That's where I see their biggest flaw.
Yeah. And, this upcoming week, they have to deal with Sorsby, who is kind of a dual threat guy. He has 6 rushing touchdowns on the year, along with his 13 passing yards. Passing touchdowns, I should say. So, not saying that he's like he's a very good running quarterback, but he does have 6 rushing touchdowns. So, you kind of have to factor that into the equation. Look, it's as simple, you can say it simply, as long as Travis Hunter gets to, has the ability to play more this week, this team will be okay. An update from Dion saying that Travis was better than last week, that he'll have more productivity this week because he's feeling much better compared to last week as well, according to what he said. So that's why last week when he was benched in that second half, it was just for precaution. So if everything that Dion says is true, that Hunter will be able to contribute a lot more this week compared to last week because his health is getting better, I do think this Colorado Buffaloes team should be able to handle a Cincinnati team who has the same exact record with them overall and the same exact record in the conference, 5-2 and 3-1 respectively, for both of those categories. So Shooter had a kind of a game last week, 2 interceptions, but one of them wasn't his fault. The other one was his fault. Yeah, but I
It's
mentioned,
arguably been a miscommunication on the receiver's side. I did
Mhm.
watch it again, but no, he
Yeah,
still threw 2 picks, but it didn't matter. I
yeah,
like the fact that he didn't have his best game and they still won.
yeah. That's the main thing I want to point out, Coach, because it's like for so long now. I feel like I know this season is only like 7 games through, but for most of the season, I think that's a better way to put it. He's had to be Superman because we mentioned with the run game, it's kind of non-existent sometimes. So it always depends on him to run this offense. And yes, you would think a quarterback who throws 2 interceptions, okay, that means they lost and the offense just couldn't get anything going. Thankfully, that wasn't the case because even with the 2 picks, they still won by a pretty good margin. So if not to say that he will clean up on his mistakes. He's not a turnover prone guy at the quarterback position. He rarely makes mistakes. I should say. I mean, that's how I would put it. So I expect him to have another good game this week against Cincinnati. I mean, Cincinnati's defense isn't the most scary bunch, I would say. So as long as he gets it going, the run game gets even better this week with Augustave or just someone, like I said, someone just has to emerge, coach. If they can do that, they're going to be just fine. And offensively, you brought up the tight end Smalls, who has kind of been non-existent this whole season. But if he can get things going at the tight end position, that just adds another weapon for Shooter to throw to, along with Shepard and Wester, who have just been phenomenal recently, I would say, for this offense. So, yeah, we shall see. Do you have a prediction, Coach, for this game? Do you have any other final points for this game as well? The spread is -4, by the way, in favor of Colorado at home.
And that's what my analytics system got. I got 31-27 Colorado.
All right.
Yep. So as everything we discussed, we got Colorado doing that. Also, another thing to mention,
Of course.
Cincinnati just +1 in the turnover ratio. They struggle to create turnovers, and they have been penalized quite frequently on the season. So 2 key aspects in which those things may come out to be crucial down the stretch, beating themselves and failure to create a spark defensively. So nonetheless, we both agree here. The analytics say it. The bettors in Vegas say it. I got Colorado winning this game.
All right.
That's all I got to say about that.
Go Buffs, baby. Hopefully they get the win. And if they get this win, definitely they will hopefully be in the rankings at least, maybe 25. Who knows?
For sure. If they win this game, they break in the top 25. Have to.
Can't believe Army and Navy are undefeated and they're ranked. Just to go off topic for a second, it's crazy how Army and Navy are ranked right now. What a world we live in, right, Coach?
It's really not that crazy off the simple fact that they play a unique style of offense. When everyone zigs, you zag. They're playing flex bone, triple option football. And so when everyone's playing these spread teams with 3-4 receivers on the field, now you bring out double tight and wing backs. You got 2 additional gaps that the defense has to account for, putting safeties and cornerbacks in run support. It just really changed the dynamics of the game, and a lot of teams aren't built to really grind it out with all that movement offensively. It really goes back to the fundamentals of football, which is funny that you say that, actually, because I'm about to get back on the sticks in NCAA, and I really want to learn the gameplay better. I was playing for about a month, and then I just got busy with life, but I was starting a season with Army or Navy, because if I master the fundamentals of the triple option and the principles, as I start spreading it out with better offensive players, I'll know all the keys. So it's really going back to the basics to really understand every aspect of the game. So I think that, again, the more things change, the more they stay the same, and history tends to repeat itself. And so you see this old-fashioned way turning out to be potentially a new blueprint of how teams go about playing football. So I think that we may see a little bit of a revolution, or perhaps that's wishful thinking. But teams going back to some of that, I think it's intriguing. So no, it doesn't surprise me, though. I said to say it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, what's it called? Like you said, defenses have to. They're so used to seeing spread offenses and throwing the football, and they face these two teams. And it's like, damn, we gotta deal with like misdirections and option plays and
When I got to tell you,
yeah,
Lincoln Riley was at the height of his Oklahoma run.
yeah,
He scored 12 points against Army, and they had a defensive coordinator by the name of Jim Bateman, I believe. And then he went on to UNC when Mac Brown got the job. He plucked him from Army. This guy was running this exotic 3-4. It was kind of like a positionless defense. And he had only 6 blitz concepts that he would run out of all these exotic looking defenses, but the principles remained the same. It was like a master class on like how to mask your fronts defensively. I hope I got his name right, Jim Bateman. He flamed out. He didn't really do well at UNC, but Army is a school where you got really disciplined guys that are smart. And like I work with military personnel now, is that they're so task oriented and like understanding the principles of like doing your job. Bill Belichick, his dad was a scout at Navy, do your job. That's where that comes from. And so defensive football is all about like knowing your responsibilities and understanding the offensive alignment and understanding where you have numbers. And so if they can just win the chess match mentally and wrap up and tackle, blocking and tackling, being a more physical team, you're going to have a shot, man. And these kids coming up are not playing a physical brand of football. And so it just really puts it in perspective, one, some of the problems with the developmental aspects of the game and how important our service academies are and the skill set of those players and how that translates to being an effective football player. We can't get away from that because football is a thinking man's sport. So
right.
That is my 2 cents on why the service academies are having a revival, and it's a beautiful thing.
Damn right. Running the football, coach, one of your favorite things in life, isn't it? Oh my god. Well, speaking of running the football, this team that we're about to talk about is not good at doing so. And well, they kind of I'm surprised this game wasn't moved away from Sunday Night Football, but you can't predict injuries, right? And that's the unfortunate part of football, is that every week is different and you just never know what's going to happen. So the Dallas Cowboys will be taking on the San Francisco 49ers on Sunday night in Santa Clara, California, Levi Stadium to be exact. If injuries wasn't a thing, this would be a matchup that a lot of people will be looking forward to. Unfortunately, that might not be the case in this one because the 49ers are so injury riddled. It's absolutely ridiculous. Brandon Ayuk is out for the season. Deebo Samuel was dealing with pneumonia this past week, and yeah,
I'm so sick of Deebo Samuels, man. It's always something.
It's always something. And yeah, I mean, obviously, I wish nothing but the best for him. I hope he gets better soon because pneumonia is a serious thing. But it's like heading into last Sunday's game, he was active, he was ready to go, but he played like 3 snaps. He wasn't even in the opening series of the opening drive of the game. He played 3 snaps overall, had to go get an oxygen mask, and then just left the game in general. So he just could not play whatsoever. And then Ayuk got hurt, and that was a mess. Kittle has an injury right now as well. Juwan Jennings, the third receiver for the 49ers, is questionable as well. Just a whole mess. Like all the key players for the Niners.
For a second, okay? You're being a journalist. I respect it. You're doing a great job. You are good at what you do. What the hell do you think about the 49ers, Nate? What are your thoughts on them? You're you're giving this neutral opinion. They got these injuries, and it was tough last week. And what do you think about the 49ers? They're clearly underachieving. They're beaten down. Okay, are they a little hungover from the fact that they've come close to winning a couple Super Bowls? How do you view this organization, and are you sold on Brock Purdy? What do you think?
I don't know yet. I think for Purdy, I just don't know because he's always been surrounded by weapons ever since he started, and that's no fault to him. Like it's how good the roster is built. I think the real test is this Sunday. I feel like, but overall, this Niners team, even with the weapons that Purdy's had, not that good. You're 3-4. The Chiefs are 6-0. You face them in the Super Bowl. They didn't have a hangover. So why are you guys having a hangover, right? Defensively, they under their new was it defensive coordinator? I forgot his name, but it's a first year defensive coordinator. Uh, he doesn't look that great. Offensively, it's clear that without CMC, they
Hey, dude. They're top 5 in points allowed per game defensively, okay? And they're also top 5 in stopping the run. Their pass defense is abysmal. Their
and that's the
defense
thing,
is
though.
a problem right
No,
now.
I'm not saying. I mean, it's part of. I mean, I'm not going to give all the blame to the
They're
offense.
struggling. They have some problems. I agree.
Yeah.
But the 49ers defense is holding it down. They're holding it down actually pretty well, given the fact Christian McCaffrey is out and Jordan Mason has come out of nowhere and he's second in the league in rushing right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's not like, okay, that cancels out.
Yeah.
Ayuk has been he missed camp, as I told you before. I'm irritated when receivers miss camp.
Yeah.
And what happens? He started off slow and then he tore his ACL. That's a lack of preparation.
Mm-hmm.
But Jawan Jennings has picked up the slack, and he's been really successful this year. Over 40 catches, 400 yards. This guy's come out of nowhere. And then they got Ricky Purcell, the rookie from Florida, who is suffering from the gunshot wounds. He's now made his way back to the field. He had a couple catches down the stretch and started to get in rhythm. They had this other receiver, Cowley, number 18, who was starting to get in the mix. But what stood out to me in watching that game is that they're really inexperienced at receiver. George Kittle, still an elite player. Kyle Juszczyk gets it done. Okay. But now Brock Purdy's going to have to win games with his arm. Okay. And he's going to have to play Dak Prescott style of football. He's in shootouts because his pass defense isn't that good. So if they can't run the ball and control clock, which they can, but they're just limited because they don't really have explosive players on the perimeter. So they're going to have to play real slow, grinded out games. And that doesn't mean that their opponent is going to try to run the ball as well, because the 49ers are going to be able to stop the run. So they're in a little bit of a juxtaposition off the fact that they can actually excuse me, poor reference, but they can stop the run and they can run the ball. They can't stop the pass and they can't create explosive plays. So they're limited, and Brock Purdy is really not mastermind. He's not finding the holes. He's a guy that can manage the game with good players around him. And so we're starting to see him struggle. The numbers aren't bad, and he's actually thrown for a lot of yards and a decent amount of touchdowns, but he's thrown some bad interceptions, man.
That's the key thing.
Last week.
3 of them.
Yeah, he did not look good. He's had a 5 interception game before, so he can get a little erratic. So all things considered, man, we talk about the 49ers quite a bit. They're just an interesting case study right now because they have good personnel, and up until last week, they were above 500, and they haven't missed a beat with the run game and trying to do the things that they want to do. But Debo in and out, Ayuk now out. That was kind of like the turning point for them. Was just like a bad case sequence of events for them.
Yeah.
Now going into this game, Micah Parsons is probably going to come back. The Cowboys are off of a bye. They had a big win against the Steelers, who are clearly a good team, but they had that ass whooping that they suffered from the Lions. So they definitely have to look in the mirror. Teams always do well off a bye. They're going to be able to throw the ball all over the yard on the 49ers for sure. And they're going to be able to get after Brock Purdy. And so it's interesting because leading up to, prior to last week, you would easily say that these teams are trending in opposite directions. Now it's like there's a shift where the 49ers are going down. The Cowboys are getting healthy and, starting to get some momentum at the right time. But I say all that to just say this, man. The Cowboys are going to win this game, I believe. And my system's got them winning as well, which I think is interesting, taking all these variables into account. But the fact of the matter is that even if the Cowboys win this game, this is the same thing we see every single year. The Cowboys are good. They're going to make a run. They're just going to get bounced in the first round. They're definitely going to get one of the wild card spots. And they're definitely going to be able to maybe get one out of the Eagles. They're going to beat the Giants. They can definitely split one with the Commanders. And the Commanders may get in the playoffs for sure. Jaden Daniels is hurt, so they may have got off to a hot start. A lot of movement, right? We're really going to see who's playing ball. But the Cowboys have about 4 to 5 easy games that they can win. And so this 49er team, which looks good on paper, a win against the 49ers, like, oh, wow, the Cowboys had a big win. It'd be like a signature win, beating the Steelers and then beating the 49ers. But the fact of the matter is that still wouldn't make them a good team. That's the funny thing about it, is like that win may sound good, but in the grand scheme of things, I don't think they can go toe-to-toe with the Ravens. They can't go toe-to-toe with the Vikings or the Texans. And so I just I'm just kind of like, okay, the 49ers are our opponent this week. It's definitely going to get a lot of attention. The 49ers are battered. The Cowboys are coming off a bye. But even if they win, I don't think that anything's really going to change with the Cowboys moving forward, because this is the O-line.
Yeah. And the key thing for the Cowboys is Michael Parsons, like you mentioned, Coach, who did not practice today or didn't participate in any on-field activities, to be exact. And he is more than likely a game-time decision for Sunday night's game. So if Dallas does not have him, we will see how that goes. You mentioned they beat the Steelers, right? But they were a suspect offense. I mean, we talked about that last week, right? With the Cowboys, they beat the Giants, they beat the Steelers, and those are two offenses that either are suspect or are just downright bad. So, and when they played the Lions, who, let's be honest, they're more of a legit offense compared to Pittsburgh and New York, they got blown the heck out. Now you're playing a Niners team who they don't look as explosive like they used to, and they will even be less explosive without Ayuk and more than likely without Debo. Kittle is questionable, so we'll see what happens there. Jordan Mason, yes, he's like top 5 in rushing yards, but he's not the like explosive back that a Christian McCaffrey is and whatnot too. So, this is a big test for Brock Purdy. Like, yes, we talk about the Cowboys and everything, and the game plan is we say it every single week, Coach, is the run game sucks. So,
you think that if the 49ers fail to win 7 games, do they move off Brock Purdy, or do they bring in another guy?
No, I think it's a fair question to ask.
They shouldn't pay him, though. They shouldn't pay him top 10.
No, I would pay him top 10 money, but it better be like around the 9-10 mark. Yeah, I get the quarterback market and everything.
You know how much that would blow their roster up, and their roster's on the verge of blowing up. They can't pay all those players.
I think heading into the season overall, like when you look at the roster as a whole, this was like their last chance to try to make. This is their last chance to make a run with the roster they have.
Yes, traded Ayuk, man. I really think they should have traded.
That's the thing, and there was a moment in time where they asked them. They had a trade in place. I forgot. I think it was with Pittsburgh. I think, and they were like, "Hey, either you stay with us or you go to Pittsburgh. Which one do you want?" He stayed with the Niners, and then they re-signed him. Honestly, with the amount of drama that he caused the team throughout the whole offseason, I would have just moved on. Like, get some draft picks. You're saving yourself cap space. You can re-sign your quarterback to a reasonable contract, and then get another receiver.
You a receiver in the first round.
Yeah, you drafted Pearsall. You have Cowing and Bell from the season before in the draft. Now you're just okay. It's not bad to have a lot of receivers.
They don't even need receivers like that.
Yeah,
they're fine.
Yeah, they prepared themselves to lose Ayuk with Pearsall and then with Bell and Cowing from last year. So it was and Jawan Jennings, they re-signed him. So there was no need to bring him back. But hey, they brought him back, and now they're paying the consequences. So now he's out for the rest. He got his money, good for him, but he's out for the year, which affects the whole dang team.
They might end up trading him next offseason too.
Imagine that, though. Think about that. You resign a guy just to trade him away. It sounds familiar. Odell Beckham Jr. That was freaking terrible. I hate that for my Giants. But just overall, Coach, this Niners team isn't as good as it used to be. A hangover might be kind of an understatement. They just flat out aren't that good anymore. And they better turn it around, because this NFC West, record-wise, doesn't look that pretty. But the Seahawks, you can't mess around with the Seahawks.
They're flawed, though.
They are flawed, 100%. All the teams in the NFC West are flawed. Yeah. Speaking of which, just to go off topic real quick, Marvin Harrison Jr. is it's not his fault that he's not putting up stats like he's supposed to be
He had a
being
200-yard game in his second game though, man.
Yeah, but like recently though, like it's just the whole Kyler Harrison dynamic isn't really.
I mean, sure. I mean, the Cardinals aren't a really good team. They have a defensive-minded coach. Like Kyler Murray's kind of aloof. Like he's 8 games in, man. I don't like.
I think for me, it's like that's your number one guy though. That's your number one guy. So you got to give him the football, and he's not getting the football.
Who's his offensive coordinator? Like
that's a good question.
That's what I'm like. The Cardinals are just a grease fire to me. They've actually been better than expected. I think that's because Kyler Murray's played pretty well. But yes, they're struggling.
Drew Petzing is his name.
I don't even know who that is, man.
Yeah, me either, coach. So
yeah, so I don't know. It's not. We can't indict Marvin Harrison Jr.
No, I'm not criticizing him at all. It sucks for him because he's the number one guy. You drafted him 4th overall to be the number one guy. When the Giants were smart, specifically Daniel Jones was smart, he was targeting Malik Nabers constantly, which is what you're supposed to do when you draft a receiver that high. Marvin Harrison, statistically, and you can see it on film too, he's not really being targeted a lot by Kyler. And that's a big concern because you drafted this guy 4th overall. He was arguably the best receiving prospect coming out of the draft. And he didn't make an impact on Monday night against the Chargers. Like they barely escaped on the field goal. That was the ugliest Monday night game so far this season.
Chargers have the best defense in the NFL right now.
You know who I feel bad for? Justin Herbert, coach. That man threw for 300 yards, man, just to lose. Like you know how he went from Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Austin Eckler when he was good. Last season he was terrible for the Chargers. He went from all that to dealing with Joshua Palmer, who has never been wide receiver number 1 material. He was a wide receiver 3 when Allen and Williams was in. Now he's number 1. You have McConkey, who's a rookie, who I like, but he's a rookie. He's young, not the most dangerous receiving prospect that they drafted. Who else they have? The run game, J.K. Dobbins, who had 2 great games to start the year and has kind of just slowed down since then.
No offensive personnel, man.
Yeah. Could they trade him? Who knows?
They should try to find a way to get Mike Williams back. Because he ain't doing nothing with the Jets.
Oh, we'll talk about the Jets later, aren't we? Yeah, I know you got some thoughts about that one. But overall, coach, this Cowboys-Niners game, Sunday night, prime time. You have, I think you said the Cowboys were going to win by, what was your prediction?
27-23.
27-23, okay. So we'll see. Hey, CeeDee Lamb might have a big game. Who knows? Maybe Zeke will wake up.
I got CeeDee Lamb looking to have a big day with the depleted 49ers secondary.
Okay.
Yep.
Maybe Zeke will wake up.
Maybe we'll have a Dalvin Cook sighting.
Where's Dalvin Cook, man? He ain't cooking nothing. It's just signed with the Cowboys. He's just been there. He's just a spectator, basically, for America's team. Freaking Jerry, man. I tell you. I can't believe this dude. He passed on signing Derrick Henry, didn't even get one in the draft. Now, Ashton Gianti, by the way.
They didn't even draft it back. You're right. They didn't even draft one.
They didn't even draft one. You had so many. Yeah, Blake Corum was there.
There's a ton of running backs every year, man. There's tons of running backs you can out.
Yeah, so they're probably going to get Ashton.
Running back every year. Every NFL team should bring in like 1 to 3 backs.
Just one. Just got to bring in one. Like, who knows? Try it out. They were thinking that Rico Dowdle, Ezekiel Elliott, and Deuce Vaughn was going to replace the production of Tony. I'm not saying Pollard's like a top 10 back, but you put Pollard in this team right now, they're a much better team rushing-wise.
Well, their O-line's bad, so I really don't think it matters. But
Zach Martin's getting old, coach. He's been so good for so long, man, and now he's just getting old. But okay, let's see. As we move on now to our top 5. Oh, this is new. A little new segment that we have for you guys, actually. Me and Coach came up with the top 5 teams in the NFL. Newsflash, the Cowboys are not one of them. Or the Niners. Or the Giants, obviously. if I said the Giants, I'd be biased and I'd probably be kicked off and fired by Belly Up Sports. But here, see, so I'm not going to lose my job over saying the Giants are a top 5 team, which they are not at all. But Coach, we'll start with you. I saw your list beforehand. Kind of have some questions, but hey, I'm not, doubting your knowledge of the game of football. I just have a lot of questions why the teams that are top 5 are, you know, your top 5. So let's look into it, Coach. Explain why you have the rankings as are, because you have the Chiefs 1, Ravens 2, Lions 3, Texans 4, and Vikings 5.
Yes. Yes, I
Why?
do.
But number 1 is it bothers me, Coach.
Okay. Well, first things first, let's start with 5, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Um, the Vikings offense has been phenomenal. Sam Darnold has had a resurgence or perhaps an emergence because he's never been um, particularly great. He's actually had an underwhelming career thus far. Brian Flores has that defense rocking. Very competitive division as well, but that offense is putting up points. Justin Jefferson is the best receiver in the league by far.
Mm-hmm.
So that team is really, they're well coached. They are getting after the passer, close to 20 sacks on the season, phenomenal at stopping the run, and really good situationally on third down as well. Brian Flores just drawing up great blitzes. And so, yeah, you could just, the Vikings are doing really good things.
Mm-hmm.
They're my number 5 team right now. I don't think that they could win a Super Bowl. But I do think that because they got off to a hot start, they're definitely going to be between an 11 to a 14 win team.
Yeah.
And I just think Kevin O'Connell, it's time to give him his flowers off the fact that he really knows how to coach some ball. And I think it really doesn't even matter who they have at quarterback. I think that they just have a really good roster. Now, Flores has definitely found his home as a DC. He shouldn't chase a head coaching job. So that was definitely long-winded, but I really like what the Vikings are doing.
Okay.
Number 4, the Texans. Actually fascinating that they are top 5 on defense right now. Did not know that.
Yeah.
It is in yards allowed. But obviously, CJ Stroud is a top tier quarterback. I think he's definitely broken into the top 5. The addition of Joe Mixon has been great. Nico Collins, Tank Dell, and Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs is a little erratic. But they are doing great stuff, man. So with the top 5 defense, that offensive personnel, CJ Stroud, young team, they're going to be a threat for a really long time. Do I trust them making a deep playoff run? No. I even think a team like the Bills could get them. I think the Bills are trending up and getting Amari Cooper. Is definitely going to help them make a late season push. And I think Josh Allen is one of the best players in the league. So in a playoff game, I like his chances. But right now, with where we're at and what I've seen thus far, the Bills definitely need to come on. And so I think the Texans are undoubtedly the 3rd best team in the AFC. Number 3, the Lions. They are just a well-rounded football team, man. Jared Goff has definitely emerged into being a elite quarterback. He's already been with Super Bowl, pretty young guy. Obviously had that perfect game a couple weeks back between David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. They are running the rock. They have an elite receiver on the outside. Defense struggles to stop the pass a little bit, but they are a tough team that can stop the run. They just do everything well. Dan Campbell coaches with just his heart and soul. And I think that the city is really behind them. So the Lions, obviously, they weren't able to get over the hump last year and make it to the big game, but they have not missed a beat this season. I think they are the best team in the NFC today. And I did just want to note, because that is the last NFC team, that I think the Packers and the Eagles are coming. The thing I can't trust with the Eagles is I don't think Nick Sirianni is a good coach, but their players, they are a very talented team. And the Packers, well-rounded team, great coach, good quarterback. I think that they are poised to make a run. I think that they're a team that could be dangerous down the stretch because I love LaFleur. But last 2 teams here, Baltimore Ravens, top 5 defense, can't stop the pass at all. However, best run offense by about 50 yards. Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, two-headed monster. They have been nothing short of phenomenal on the season. Defense dialing up blitzes all over the place, high turnover ratio. They are just really operating on all cylinders. Key thing is health for them down the stretch. But we talked about it before, just like the Celtics were in last NBA season, the Ravens are Super Bowl or bust. But
Yep.
after starting off 0-2, man, they are 5-2, and they are on fire. Last team, the Kansas City Chiefs. Um, Top five defense. Patrick Mahomes and his ability to just command an offense. Doesn't matter who's in on at the receiver position. They just plugged in Kareem Hunt. He not missed a beat, looking like his former self. During his original stint there, they just picked up DeAndre Hopkins. Even Travis Kelce's been fairly slow to get this season rolling, but all things considered, man, Patrick Mahomes is already at that elite level, and he's still fairly young. And Spagnuolo has that defense really spearheading that team at this point. They just win games. They actually aren't throwing the ball around the yard. Patrick Mahomes has thrown quite a bit of interceptions. They've actually struggled. They are flawed.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, the defense is so good, and Patrick Mahomes just steps into this zone that's just very rare. Kind of reminds me of like Tom Brady from like 17 to like 23, or 22 is his last season, where he could just tap into something and just become unbeatable. I think Mahomes has already found that. So that's my top five, man. I feel really strong about those teams. And the only teams that would even get consideration are the Bills, Packers, and Eagles. But there is no clear cut best team
Correct.
as of today, right now. Not at all. So it's really anyone's ball game. And I think that the Steelers could potentially break in the mix into that list. So, yeah, that's my top five, man. And I'm really interested to see what you got.
Yeah, I mean, my list isn't as far away from yours, Coach. Number five, I have the Vikings. It's crazy how a guy in Sam Donald, who has played with the Jets and the Panthers, and just hasn't really lived up to that number three overall pick that he was years ago. He found a home with the Vikings, and I mean, a matter of fact, he wasn't even supposed to start with the Vikings, and then McCarthy went down. And a lot of people are like, okay, well, that means Justin Jefferson's production's gonna go down. Aaron Jones, they're gonna rely a lot on him to run this offense. Well, they're 5-1, and Darnold has played really well. Yes, they lost last week, so I was unfortunate, but
The Lions, that's
yeah,
fine.
to the Lions. Like, that's not a bad loss at all. So look, this Vikings team, they're legit. They have the best receiver in the game, a solid running back. Jordan Addison is healthy. They're getting TJ Hawkinson back very, very soon. If he's not 100% this week, he will be next week. Hawkinson will be. So just overall, and the defense, the Vikings defense is really good. But I think we talked about this before, right, Coach? Just some coaches, right, who just, yes, the head coaching job is the number one goal for any coordinator, but there's times where maybe just being the coordinator is just the best fit for you. Brian
Facts.
Flores, right? Ben Johnson had a chance to be a head coach for a different team, but he decided to stay with the Lions as an OC. And once again, he's doing an outstanding job being the OC for the Lions, who I'll get to later on. But for Minnesota, Brian Flores has done an outstanding job. There's been times where we've seen interviews or seeing guys mic'd up talking to Brian Flores after the game saying, hey, your scheme, man, is like really good. So a lot of teams have respect for Flores and his ability to just have a great defensive scheme and combine it all together along with the offense. This Vikings team is a legit team. And hey, this NFC North, Coach, it is no joke. Packers, Vikings, Lions, a very competitive division. Now, the Bears, it'll take some time, but Caleb Williams is growing. So that's a good thing for Chicago, at least. I had the Chiefs up 4, and I understand, like, yeah, how do you have a team at 6-0 number 4? Here's the thing. We all realize that defensively, they're disguising Mahomes. Because they're 6-0, no one's saying, "Oh, Mahomes is playing bad." The man has 6 touchdowns and 8 picks, and no one's saying a thing. Yet we have guys with we're talking about Daniel Jones struggling, and oh my God, everyone's talking about it. And I am too. I am too. But no one talks about Mahomes. You know why? Because his defense is disguising everything. That plus the referees, plus the Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce crap. Kareem Hunt's played great. He's played well. I'm glad the Chiefs brought him back. He's been great. He leads the team in rushing despite playing 3 games. That just shows how bad the rush game was before he got there. Carson Steele, we thought was going to do something. Samaje Perine, sure, those two guys didn't do crap. But Checo's out for at least past midseason. The receivers, Rashee Rice got hurt. But didn't we think that Xavier Worthy was going to break out? Where's that? Oh, and Travis Kelce isn't getting any younger. So it's like this offense is really bad. Like, sure, statistically, it doesn't look like that because they're putting up points and everything. Yeah, but no one talks about Mahomes. Like I said, 6 touchdowns, 8 picks, 1,300 passing yards, coach. He's not that good. He is not that good this season, of course. You know, he's always been one of the best quarterbacks in the league. But he looks like crap. So why does this team deserve to be? No, I'm not arguing with you because you having the Chiefs at 1 is perfectly fair. But the majority of people in this world cannot say that the Chiefs are the best team in the NFL. Just because you're 6-0 doesn't mean anything. They should be 4-2. They lost by a foot, like an actual foot of Isaiah Likely in week 1, and that pass interference in that Bengals now was not passing. What is the DB supposed to do? Not go for the football? He was going up for the ball. That is not pass interference. I don't care what you say. The Chiefs should be easily be 4-2 right now, but that's because of a foot and a pass interference. This team is not that good.
They're the defending Super Bowl champion, and they're 6-0. So they have to be number 1 until they're beaten, until they come back down to earth. That's
and
how
they will. We don't know when, right? But I think we can both agree, right, Coach, that they will fall back down to earth.
Not have a clear-cut elite team, just a lot of mediocrity. And so I can't look at an organization and be like, that's it. So
because there's flaws with every single team. That's even our top 5. Vikings have flaws. Can they keep that up? At 3, I have at number 3 I have the Bills. Josh Allen unlike Mahomes, has been playing like an MVP. Very quiet, great season so far. 12 touchdowns, no interceptions. A very smart quarterback so far this year. Can run with the football. They got Amari Cooper, which is great. Keon Coleman had a breakout sort of game last week for catches for over 120. So, that's great to see. And the defense is solid too. But this offense with Cooper will definitely get it going. And honestly, Josh Allen has played absolutely phenomenal. And he has his Bills team playing really well at 5-2. So I have him at number 3. Number 2, I have Detroit. Jared Goff, man. I love me some Jared Goff, Coach. You don't understand. That is Cal Berkeley represent, Coach. I love Jared Goff, man. He's playing so efficient. That's the thing. Very efficient. And it's not just checkdowns. He's throwing the ball deep, too.
The better Matt Ryan.
Yeah, he's throwing the ball deep. He has Jameson. He's got Amon-Ra. Laporta has been very underperforming this year compared to where he was last year. Maybe he gets it going. Who knows?
Oh, dude, he's like the 5th option.
Yeah, because even Khalif Raymond and Allen Robinson are getting catches for touchdown.
Allen Robinson is on the Lions.
Who?
Allen Robinson.
Yeah. Who knew, right?
Wow, he's fallen off hard.
He's not the same like he used to be, Coach. Right? In Chicago, he played really well, and he kind of just fell off ever since.
He's a little bit of a journeyman.
A little bit. But I think most importantly, Coach, they lost Aiden Hutchinson, which is a big loss for them. He was currently 3rd in sacks with 7.5. Then he got hurt against Dallas, and that was just an unfortunate loss. He's out for the year. He could be back for the Super Bowl if they make it that far, but that's obviously looking too far into the future. But the running game, Coach, we talked about it before. Montgomery and Gibbs are such a great 1-2 duo. They have them both signed for a good amount of years left. So good shout out to them, man. They're playing well. And Dan Campbell is arguably a top 5 coach, if not one of the best coach in the NFL. He's just so good. Very motivational players coach, knows ball. He's a very smart guy, and I love him for it. He's such an outstanding guy for any team to have as a head coach. And then number 1 at Baltimore. I mean, seeing what they did on Monday night, they just ran all over the Bucs. 41 points I think they put up against the Buccaneers. Like, they were on fire. Derrick Henry looks unstoppable. Finally on a competitive team. No knock to the Titans, but the Ravens are such a better team. that Derrick Henry deserves to be on. Lamar Jackson is playing MVP level. Passing wise, the receivers aren't putting up crazy numbers, but I think one keynote is that Mark Andrews is starting to come back to life a little bit, coach. I mean, he kind of struggled to start the year. He's kind of waking up a little bit, and that's only going to be beneficial for this offense. And defensively, obviously, they've always been a solid defense with Patrick Queen and
That's
Kyle Hamilton and whatnot. So,
that's fair.
yeah. So, Ravens, Lions, Bills, Chiefs, Vikings are my 5. The Chiefs will forever.
We have
Uh,
pretty identical lists.
yeah, I think the only difference was you had Houston in there, and Houston is outside my top 5.
I think Buffalo really took a major leap getting Amari Cooper. If
Oh,
they
100%.
so
100%.
that's those things. But I think as of today, I like Houston.
Yeah, that's totally fair, coach. Totally fair. I think they lost Nico Collins. He'll be out for a couple more weeks before he'll be back for the Texans. Yeah. So, all right, couple more things we got to cover. Coach's spotlight. This I like this guy. He was a different name that I didn't expect for this week's coach's spotlight, coach. So tell us who it is and why is he in coach's spotlight this week?
Little different from the player spotlight. We call
Yeah.
it coach's spotlight. And just wanted to talk about Matt Campbell, the head coach at Iowa State. He has them 6-0 right now. They're in the top 10. And he has been phenomenal since he's been at Iowa State. He's 48-43. He beat Oregon in a Fiesta Bowl, which is a BCS bowl game in 2020. He has been phenomenal at Iowa State, had them in the top 20 on defense last couple years, and his defensive coordinator, Hitchcock, I forget his first name, Coach Hitchcock, has run this very unique version of a 3-3-5 defense with 3 high safeties, a defense that I used as a defensive coordinator. And I've been watching Iowa State cut-ups for the last 4 or 5 years since Campbell's been there. He started off at Toledo, had some success, got plucked to Iowa State, and since he's gotten there, he's played this kind of Patriot style where the defense is giving you these exotic looks. Offensively, they're playing ball control, highly efficient, dominating time of possession. And who did that system develop? Mr. Irrelevant Brock Purdy. That's really interesting. I was reading about Iowa State's defense about 3 or 4 years ago in local Iowa State Reddit chat. And they were like, Brock Purdy's like Tom Brady-esque. The way this guy manages the game is poised. And I think it's funny how Brock Purdy's NFL career panned out, but the scheme that he played in college that had that type of defense that positioned him to manage games. And Kyle Shanahan obviously bringing the most out of Purdy, just like he brought the most out of Garoppolo, who came out of New England. So they say, as I said it before, offensive coaches win score points, defensive coaches win games. Matt Campbell is a well-rounded coach. He's also a motivator, has good assistants, and just has a unique approach to winning games. He has definitely overachieved in recruiting, bringing in talent to Iowa State. And they have an identity of more of a Big Ten team, and they have throughout the last decade. But they've been in the Big 12, which I always thought was kind of interesting. So they got to play these spread out teams, these air raid dual threat quarterbacks. And so the fact that they opt to play this ball control style of offense with this sort of spread killer defense is a really unique approach to zagging when everyone is zigging. So I think that if he wants to make the leap to the NFL, I think that he's definitely positioned to doing it in a similar fashion to Matt Rule. Matt Rule never coached at a big school per se, had a little bit of an NFL pedigree, and was able to go to the NFL. And I believe he wasn't fired from the Panthers. He just left on his own terms, but he was going to get fired anyway. But the fact of the matter is that he wasn't like a quote unquote bust. There have been a lot worse guys. And so that's why he's been able to go to Nebraska and still be respected. Well, Campbell's a guy that could make that leap. Iowa State is the favorite to win the Big 12. I don't think Coach Prime and those boys want that smoke. And I'm just being totally
yeah.
That is a tough team. And I'd love to see them make a run in the playoffs.
Yeah.
They're a team that can make life tough for a Georgia or a Texas. based off the style of play. So I'm really drawn to that. Nothing sexy about the Iowa State Cyclones. You can go there and major in corn out in are they in Grand Rapids or are they in Ames? I forget. I've been around Iowa State's campus before, but nothing short of impressive what Matt Campbell has done with Iowa State now crawling into the top 10, and that just needs to be celebrated. So just wanted to come out here and just say this guy's doing a remarkable job, and I look for him to be in conversations of actually being an NFL coach. The NFL franchise is looking to find the next, up and coming coaching hire. Stop getting these ass offensive coordinators, okay, that have never led a team in their life. Go get yourself a college football coach that knows how to build a program and win some games. And Matt Campbell fits the bill. Coach spotlight. That's what I got for this week.
Love it. He's coaching a team that is 7-0 through 7 games. They have Texas Tech on November 2nd. So they're on a bye this week. So, but honestly, Coach, Texas Tech, Kansas, Cincinnati, Utah, Kansas State, 5 winnable games for the Cyclones team.
They'll probably finish undefeated.
Playoff spot on the way.
I'd love to see it, man. Like I said, I've been watching them for a while.
Love it. All right, Coach, to wrap things up, your post-game speech, as we always love to hear about. And we are actually going to the 2 games you discussed last week between the Niners and the Chiefs and the Jets versus the Steelers. So what do you have for us as we wrap things up here on Coach's Corner, episode 10 of this one?
So as we obviously talk about the Buffaloes and the Cowboys, it gives me the opportunity to analyze what their opponents are doing and learn a little bit more about the football world. Because I'm kind of siloed in this box, and that helps me stay focused on our subject matter. But I'm able to learn a little bit. So I've developed this system that allows me to run the box score and the cumulative statistics and learn about teams and see how they match up. So I looked at the 49ers pretty closely because I knew they were going to be playing the Cowboys. So I looked at what they had done in the past and then thought they're matching up against the Chiefs, who are a little bit more flawed than their record would indicate. And my system had predicted that the Chiefs were going to win 30-24, and the Chiefs ended up winning 28-18. So I was kind of close. However, as we're able to highlight elements like Chiefs have a phenomenal defense, 49ers struggle to pass the ball, or like putting in the prediction this week, like Ayuk towards ACL for the season, McCaffrey has been out, Jawan Jennings battling an injury, taking into account what some of the metrics are, as is. The data almost like adjusts with these subjective notes of like coming off a bye and how these variables can impact the team's overall performance. So give or take, what I'm learning to see is that, like, I'm sure that there are algorithms for teams to bet on games in Vegas. And then you obviously take a little bit of some coaches' insight into the mix with the numbers, and you can get really close to predicting the outcome of games. We had Jets-Steelers game, which I predicted the Steelers are going to win 24-17. We obviously took into account the acquisition of Devontae Adams. But the fact of the matter is that Garrett Wilson and Alan Lazard have been plenty productive.
Yeah.
And same with Breece Hall, at least in the passing game. They've gotten some productivity, and Aaron Rodgers isn't playing poorly. The issue is that they can't stop a nosebleed defensively. They can't stop the run at all. Aaron Rodgers is getting put on his back all day. His yards per attempt are down quite a bit. And they are not protecting them. They can't run. So the trenches, okay? They have arguably the best pass defense in the league. They have a host of receivers. And the Steelers obviously made a quarterback change, but the fact of the matter is that the Steelers are really just able to get after them. And so this game was a lot worse than initially predicted off the fact that the Steelers can get after the passer quite a bit. And so that immediately put some strain on the Jets offense. And then Russell Wilson, where some people thought it was crazy that they benched Justin Fields, the way Russell Wilson buys time in the pocket, they have plenty of offensive personnel. He's a much better decision maker, and he's great in the play action game because he can take snaps under center. He opens the game up for the Steelers quite a bit, which is actually interesting to say. He stabilizes that offense. I honestly feel like anyone can play quarterback for them. Give Mike Tomlin a competent guy. But I say all that to say, with that stellar defense, with Russell Wilson managing the game, with guys like Pickens on the perimeter making plays, and Russell Wilson was throwing some good balls, man. And it's funny because Justin Fields accounted for 10 touchdowns. He's been giving him a run threat. I really think, like, Mike Tomlin, clearly, he's been successful. He was not going to give up on Russell Wilson, and rightfully so. He's definitely the quarterback for this team. And I like Fields. Unfortunate case of events. But I say all that to say that when Pittsburgh blocked that field goal, the game was over. The game was fairly close. It was within 3 points at that time. And then they blocked that field goal, and the Steelers never looked back. So interesting in doing the prediction in which there were some dynamics that may have changed a little bit. But when push comes to shove, what Pittsburgh did well really exploited where the Jets struggle, and the score got even more elevated than initially projected, but still had the Steelers winning by a touchdown, and they won by, 22? Yikes. But I think the Steelers are a great team. So it's interesting running these analytics and continue to keep on doing that and just learning about the league. Interesting seeing yards per attempt and rushing yards per game. Along with the number of times a quarterback gets sacked, to really be an indicator of, like, does this team have a good O-line? Because it's hard to measure an offensive line's performance as a whole. So you got to read between the lines with some of the data. Always an ongoing learning experience. The numbers never lie. And every single time we get on here, we're able to talk about this and just learn a little bit more. So that's all I got for this episode, man. And I am excited as all hell for the Colorado game this week, and interested to see what transpires in the NFL this week. Like DeAndre Hopkins going to the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Brock Purdy, in fact, a fraud. Are the Eagles for real? So the show goes on, baby.
The show goes on. We'll see what the Jets as well. Can they get things going? Because they lost to Pittsburgh. Can they get things going now?
Over them.
It's last week was not a good sign. Devontae had 3 catches on 9 targets, so not the best debut for Adams with the Jets. But hopefully it's just a 1-game thing that they turn things around over there with Adams and Rodgers. So, well, that will do it for episode 10 now of Coach's Corner. We've reached 10 episodes of this one. And it's been so much fun, Coach, learning from you as always and just talking ball with you every single week. So you can find Coach on all social media at Anton G. Wilson. You can find me at Nathan_Nguyen24 on Instagram and Twitter, which is now X, but who cares? And you can find all of our content at 3rd and 10 Pod on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and our YouTube channel at 3rd and 10 Podcast as well. So me and Coach will be back in 2 weeks. Yeah, we'll be back in a couple weeks. And we'll have another episode ready for you guys as well. And we will have a lot of college football to discuss in a couple weeks. But until then, we hope you guys enjoyed this one. Thank you guys so much for your support with everything. And we will see you guys. Well, I will see you guys tomorrow with Brian for our regularly scheduled podcast. And y'all will see Coach in 2 weeks. So thank you, Coach. Hope you have a great rest of your day. And then, of course, these next 2 weeks, hope you have a good one. And we'll talk more ball soon, Coach.
We're back at it, my man.
Yes, sir. All right, Coach.